Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my channel. The original plan for today's video was going to be rating your wildcard drafts, but there have already been so many videos on that over the international break by other YouTubers. And also on my channel, I like to try and encourage you guys to think uniquely and to think differently and not necessarily follow the masses and not necessarily follow myself either. And I thought it would be quite contradictory to be rating your wildcard. I have done it in the past, but to be rating your drafts, because all I'm going to be doing is trying to make them more like my draft, right? Because if I liked your players and I didn't have them, I'd have them. So I'm just going to be trying to make your drafts as similar to my drafts as possible. So what I thought I'd do instead, trying to link to the psychology that I've been discussing, making our own decisions, is going to try and encourage you guys, again, to think uniquely and to think differently. So I'm going to present 4 very, very unique drafts and different ways of approaching your wildcard draft, different team structures, different players that perhaps haven't been considered. And in that way, hopefully we'll start to see some different decisions being made. And if anything else, it's hopefully some entertaining content for you guys. So if you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. So if you have been keeping up to date with the content on this channel over the last week or two, you will now know that the legends over at OneFootball have decided to sponsor the content on this channel for the foreseeable future. Who are they and what they're about? It is a free football app or website where you basically get everything you need for football and FPL in one single place, whether that be transfer news, injury updates, updates from the international break, home and away form, the table, different notifications about the team that you support, live notifications to your phone during the games to find out who got the goal and who got the assist. And I found it incredibly useful over the international break to find out which of my players are playing, how many minutes they're playing, and whether they've got any potential injuries. So if you want to download the best free football app on the market and you also want to support the channel and to support me, please click the link in the description and download OneFootball for free. So guys, as I said, today's theme is to try and think uniquely and differently and to critically analyze the template, right? And to decide for ourselves, is that the best way to structure my team? Are they the best players to pick? That being said, I am never ever someone that tries to be different just for different sake, right? I don't really look at ownership too much. I don't try and pick differentials just because they're differentials. I think at the end of the day, it's very, very important to have fun. And that's one of the main reasons that I like picking different players, is because there's nothing better than picking a player that no one else has and that player scoring, getting you loads of points and shooting up the ranks, right? I do understand that, and having fun is, in my opinion, the most important thing about FPL. But at the end of the day, we have fun also when we get a lot of points. So I don't like to pick a player just to be different for the template and obvious player to score loads of points. So if I think that the template and the team that other people are picking those players from is going to be the best team, then I will pick those players, right? I hate being different just for different sake. I don't see the purpose of it, especially if the players that everyone else is picking are going to score you the most points. So whilst I have picked different players in this, I truly believe all of the players that I'm picking are decent options. I wouldn't suggest them otherwise. And I do believe all of the teams that I'm suggesting have their merits. So I'm not being just different for different sake. I'm not just doing it for content and for views. I genuinely think these are some things we should be considering when we structure our drafts. All of that being said, remember I'm going to be presenting 4 drafts in today's video. The first one I've called the Dream Trio. The reason for that is that beautiful 3 premium midfield that I've got. So the first 2 omissions that I would say that are very clear from this draft, assuming Trent is fit, which I don't know at the time of recording this video. Assuming Trent is fit, Trent is of course an omission. And listen, it's very difficult, right? Because after Watford, the fixtures aren't great, and City and Chelsea have much better fixtures. And for the 4th and 5th defender, you can go for like you can see Manquillo and Livramento, Duffy and Livramento, White and Livramento, right? There are so many good budget defenders. It is difficult to try and warrant paying the 7.5 million for Trent. That being said, he is probably one of the best point per million players. I think he's probably the best defender regardless of how much he costs. So I will find it difficult to go without him if he is confirmed fit. But assuming he is, Trent is a big omission from this draft. And the second big omission is Romelu Lukaku. And a lot of people are probably wildcarding to get him in. Maybe they have Ronaldo and they want to make the switch to Lukaku, or perhaps they don't have any premium strikers and they want to go to him. So you might find it strange here to see no premium striker. What I would say is, looking at the front 3, if we go sort of back to front, up from front to back even, Armstrong and Hwang are both fantastic budget options, right? They're very cheap, but they both seem nailed for the time being. Armstrong definitely is nailed. Hwang looks nailed for the time being. And they've both got amazing fixtures coming up. I've spoken about both strikers in past videos as well. And in my current draft, I have both Armstrong and Hwang. I think they're such good value for money and the fixtures are so good that I don't see a reason not to go for them, right? Normally, coupled with those two, you would see Lukaku. What I would say about having someone like Antonio instead of Lukaku is that Antonio is such fantastic value once again, and he plays like a premium. If we ignore price just for the time being, if we just ignore price, and you looked at Antonio and Lukaku's stats, you wouldn't see a massive difference between the two. In fact, Antonio's stats are probably better. And you would say, do you know what? I'm happy to go for Antonio. Yes, Lukaku's fixtures are better, but I wouldn't say looking at that front three, if you changed Antonio to Lukaku, it would be that much of an upgrade. It wouldn't be that different in my opinion, right? The only reason that I like Lukaku is because I think he's a fantastic captaincy option in some coming weeks. And having a premium striker allows you increased flexibility. If you want Ronaldo, Vardy, Kane, Lukaku at any point, you can switch between the four. If you don't start with a premium striker, it can be slightly more difficult to get to them. That being said, I think the front three is fine. The midfield four is the main reason I love this draft, right? Rafinha is in most of my drafts. It doesn't look like he'll be available for game week 8 due to being on international duty and due to Brazil's last game being around, I think it's about 36 hours before Leeds game. So I don't think he'll be available. But regardless, I want him long-term anyway, so I would include him on my wildcard draft and just put him on the bench or start him and hope that he plays. The reason it's called the Dream Trio is De Bruyne, Salah and Son, right? Salah is in most people's drafts, and I don't think I would ever at any stage suggest anyone to go without Salah. But Son and De Bruyne will be massive differentials. Son is starting to gain more traction. More and more people are thinking about going with Heung-min Son. De Bruyne, I think people want him, right? It's just so difficult to fit in a £12 million midfielder if you go for Lukaku as well, or if you want to go for Son, or if you want to go for Trent or a premium defence, right? It's very difficult to fit all of these players in. So I think due to Pep Roulette, I think most people go without De Bruyne. But I think De Bruyne is about as nailed as you can get in that Pep side. I expect him to play 8, maybe 9 of every 10 games. And he could quite easily start the next 3 or 4 when they've got really nice fixtures. So to be able to fit a midfield 3 of De Bruyne, Salah and Son, and an added advantage being that other people probably won't pick those players, I love it. I genuinely do. When I look at this draft, and then just quickly to cover the defence, yes, there's no Trent, but to have Cancelo, Diaz and Rudiger, as well as Ramsdale and goal, that is pretty much most people's wildcard defence. Yes, you might be able to get an extra Chelsea defender in there, or Trent as well, but they wouldn't have De Bruyne and Son. They might not have either, right? And De Bruyne and Son are serious captaincy options. Son in game week 12 or 13, I think it is, against Norwich. De Bruyne even this week, but in future weeks against Brighton. And then in game week 9... I think they've got, game week 9, they've got Brighton, Crystal Palace, I think, in game week 10. So the fixtures coming up, De Bruyne and Son are definitely captainable options alongside Salah. And I don't think in that case you necessarily need Lukaku. I would say that Lukaku in game week 9 against Norwich is the obvious captaincy option. So that might be tough to not have him for that. Outside of that, I think you can get away with not having him personally. So again, I'm not being different for different sake. Essentially, the big change here in comparison to other drafts is you've got De Bruyne instead of Lukaku, right? If I change De Bruyne to Lukaku and Antonio to like a Grealish or a Foden, you would say, yeah, that's a pretty standard draft, right? This isn't particularly exciting. It's not that unique. But having Son in there, who is a differential, even though a few people are picking him, having De Bruyne as well, I think that it makes this draft pretty safe in the fact that you've covered most of the bases and you've got a really strong balanced team. But you have 3 incredible captaincy options and premium midfielders as well. Let me know down below if you like the Dream Trio. For me, that midfield just looks absolutely amazing. If you've been watching my videos over the last week or over the last few weeks as well, you know I keep banging on about diversification bias, and I keep banging on about the fact that if you back a team to keep clean sheets or you back a team to score goals, you should pick lots of players from those teams. I do agree that, again, in finance and investment, it's good to try and diversify and to try and not put all of your eggs in one basket. In FPL, if you back a team to keep clean sheets over the next 10 weeks, then pick the players from those teams, right? So what I've done here is I've still gone for Man City and Chelsea triple ups because I know a lot of people are going to go for the triple ups, but I think a lot of people currently are going for double Man City defence, double Chelsea defence, and then Lukaku and someone like Foden or Grealish. So they've still got 6 players from Man City and Chelsea, but I don't think many would structure it like that, like this. And again, I think this is arguably probably my favourite of the 4 different drafts that I'm presenting today. I genuinely am tempted to go for something like this still, right? This isn't what my current draft looks like, but as we work through it, you'll see I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to go for this. Let's start this time from back to front, starting with the keeper. You can see I've got Mendy in goal, and if you didn't watch my game week preview video, I said that out of Mendy and Ederson, Mendy did look the better option because he's having to make slightly more saves. However, I did say that that's due to the difficulty of the games that Chelsea have played, and I don't expect Mendy to continue that, making that many saves over the easier fixtures. So at the moment, if I was choosing a premium keeper out of Mendy and Ederson, I'd probably choose Mendy. I'm not sure that it's worth the extra 1.5 million over someone like Ramsdale or Rail, 1.4 million. The reason I've done that is in this current setup, with the defence I've got, it's difficult to get a Chelsea defender in as well. So I've gone for the Chelsea goalkeeper instead to cover the clean sheet. You can see I have got Trent in this draft, which I know a lot of people on Wildcard are going to want to have him. So assuming he is fit, I've got Trent in this draft. If Trent isn't fit, well, it makes the entire draft a lot easier, right? You can go to a Chelsea defender, you can go to Ramsdale or Raya in goal, and then you've got like an extra 1.52 million to play, potentially even more like 3-4 million to play with. Triple City defence. Again, I've said it so many times. I back Man City to keep 7 or 8 clean sheets in the next 10 weeks. The fixtures are great. They are defending so incredibly well. 0.53 expected goals per 90 conceded, that is. They're not even going to concede an expected goal every 2 games, right? It's madness how well they're defending. And that's with some pretty tough fixtures as well. So I love this. Diaz is as nailed as you can get. I reckon he'll start 10 of the next 10, maybe 9 of the next 10. If, for example, Ake and Laporte or Ake and Stones or Stones and Laporte play a game. But Diaz will play 9 of the next 10. I'm almost certain of that. Cancelo and Walker, right? And I know a lot of people, you might have already commented it if you've seen this straight away, that Zinchenko is now back, right? Zinchenko is expected to be back for the Burnley game. I expect Zinchenko to start the Burnley game, right? I expect that to happen. The reason I've chosen Walker and Cancelo, and the reason I'm considering doing that in my own draft as well, is Walker and Cancelo, it's almost impossible for them to both miss out, right? They are the only 2 real right backs in the team. And outside of Zinchenko, Cancelo is the only real left back, right? They can play Ake there. They could have a little play around with their team. They could play some different They could potentially play like Laporte there and have Cancelo like attacking at the right, or have someone else like. It's very difficult to sit both Walker and Cancelo out. So if I think that Diaz is going to play every game, and I expect one of Walker and Cancelo to play every game, that means that I'm almost guaranteed to have 2 City defenders every game. And in a lot of games, Zinchenko will sit out and we'll have Walker at right back and Cancelo at left back. So in having Walker up rather than Laporte, what I think I've got here is I'm more likely to have 2 clean sheets, 2 or 3 clean sheets than if I had Laporte. I think if you have Laporte, you could see Laporte and Cancelo miss out, whereas I doubt you're going to have Walker and Cancelo miss out. Essentially, I'm backing City to get loads of clean sheets over the next few, and I'm not afraid of having a triple up, right? Yes, one week they could have their clean sheet wiped out, but the next week, if they keep a clean sheet and they get bonus points, you are looking at 25 to 30 points potentially, a minimum 18 points really for these 3 players. That's enough for a green arrow in and of itself, right? So you might have to get used to having red arrow, green arrow, but when you have those green arrows, hopefully they're significantly bigger. And I do think that this is a great tactic moving forward. What this does mean is because I don't have 2 Chelsea defenders, I can go for a Chelsea midfielder. And I've put Mason Mount in, who I do think is a fantastic option moving forward. As long as he is now fit and he's recovered, he looks to be fine. And I think moving forward, because so many people are going to be on double Chelsea defence and Lukaku, Mason Mount's going to be a great differential. And we've heard Tuchel speak about how important Mount is, along with Kovacic and Reece James as well, for creating chances for Lukaku. He takes set pieces, he whips in a lot of crosses. He's so creative, Mason Mount. So I think he could be a really shrewd pick moving forward, and I do really like him. In my current draft, I'm actually considering going for a Manchester City midfielder for game week 8, and then considering moving to Mount in 9 or 10. So I do really like Mason Mount, and this is what this setup allows you to do. Outside of that, the team is fairly standard, right? You've got Smith Rowe, Rafinha, Hwang. You can see on the bench as well, I've got Tony and Mbeumo and Livramento. So yes, the funds are fairly stretched, but it means you've got such a strong bench. So if Walker, Cancelo, and Mount and Hwang missed out, right? You've still got Tony and Mbeumo, Livramento, Smith Rowe, Rafinha. You've got so many players that can play here, right? I doubt at all that you'll have less than 11 players. Yes, a couple might miss out, but I think you're set with a strong bench. I genuinely like, you can probably tell, I think this is a fantastic draft, right? And I know I've built it, so I'm probably bigging myself up here. I like the idea of, yes, having triple City and triple Chelsea for their great fixtures, but thinking a little bit differently about it, going for that triple City defence and going for Mount in attack. So again, let me know if you like this Man City and Chelsea with a twist. I'm going to be honest, I'm just a bit of a sucker for triple City defence. I'm not going to talk about this one in too much detail, right? Because it's similar to the one that I've just done, but literally like reversed, essentially. And I've called this one the road less travelled, because once again, I think this is something that other people will avoid doing. And again, this is probably the weakest of the 4 drafts, and I can understand why people would avoid this. But it is something that, to me, just screams potential upside, right? Man City are going to probably thrash at least 3 or 4 of the teams in the next 10 weeks. Burnley in particular, they seem to give an annual hiding to. It always seems to be 5-0, right? City will score a lot of goals. If you can try and pick, and again, this is the difficult thing, and this is why we tend to avoid it. If you can find a way to pick the City players that are going to be involved in 70, 80% of those games, you are likely to catch a few hauls, right? And again, the City players that I've picked here, ignore the personnel to some extent, right? The idea is just to have a triple City attack. For example, Jesus, right? I think Jesus is one of the best options from City going forward. He seems to have nailed down the right wing. Mahrez has fallen out of favour. He can play up front as well, but he won't play in game week 8. So unless you want to cover your bench with someone like White, Jesus might not be the best initial pick on a wild card, because I doubt he's going to play, well, he's almost definitely not going to play game week 8. Then he might be settling back in. He might miss game week 9. But I do like the idea of triple City. And this is actually inspired. If you're on Twitter, if you follow FPL tactician Andy Martin, he posted a draft. I think he had Mahrez, Foden, and Torres, or maybe Grealish. He had triple Man City midfield, right? And he obviously got slated for it on Twitter because people said, well, what about Pep Roulette? What happens if this happens, etc., etc.? And I guess his response was, number one, I can cover it with my bench because I'm on wildcard, right? I'm wildcarding a strong bench and the rest of my team is fairly nailed. And secondly, I'm almost guaranteed to catch a haul by picking those 3 players, because Man City will score loads of games over the coming weeks. Most weeks, you'll probably have 2 of them start. Some weeks, you'll have all 3. And really, if you pick 3 Man City midfielders or attackers, you'd be very unfortunate to have all 3 of them benched, right? So at least one of them will play. Therefore, you're quite likely to catch a haul. And when the others don't play, often Pep doesn't even use his subs and he doesn't always bring on his attackers. So you're likely to get players off of your bench. And I liked that. I like the idea of being brave with it. And I like the fact that we're picking like Diaz and Rudiger, Mendy, Ederson, because we just want to make sure that our players play. Yes, Diaz and Rudiger are fantastic options. You can see Rudiger in this draft as well. There's not much upside to them, right? You're expecting a maximum of 9 points if they're lucky enough to get a clean sheet and 3 bonus. But realistically, it's 5 or 6 points, yellow card, or just 6 points. You're not expecting many points from these players. Going for a Foden, he might start every other game, but he's more likely to get like 15 points in one game. De Bruyne in particular is so easily capable of that. This is a very high risk, high reward approach, right? This is the sort of thing you can imagine a late riser doing. Maybe not to this extent, but upside chasing and really attacking the fixtures and attacking the players with the highest upside. The only thing that I would say about this is if you are going for the triple Man City attack, I'm not sure that my bench would cut it here with White, Livramento and Davis. I'd probably want to go for 3 playing bench players. Someone like Smith Rowe, White and Livramento on the bench. I just feel slightly more comfortable with that. What you can see is if you go for someone like De Bruyne, Foden, Jesus, or De Bruyne, Foden, and Mahrez, you can still get in Salah and Lukaku, right? So you can still have the 2 strong premiums. Again, if you don't want to captain De Bruyne, you can just have those 2 as your captains rotating. You can still get some good budget midfield options in Mbomo and Smith Rowe. And you can have a really strong defence. And that was the other reason I wanted to include this draft. Duffy obviously isn't the strongest defender. It could be Duffy, it could be Livramento or White that you could have starting. You have those 3 rotating. Rudiger is obviously a standard option there. Cucurella, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He looks great. And the reason I wanted to include Cucurella is not necessarily because I think he is the one to include. Although at £5 million, I would argue he's probably the best option. You've got Tierney, you've got Semedo, you've got Cucurella, you've got Christensen, you've got potentially like Pinnock and Rico Henry at 4.5 and 4.6. I think a lot of us, myself included, definitely, it's not just you guys, I do this as well. We've fallen into the frame of thinking where we think we have to either go for premium defenders or we go for Duffy and Livramento, right? And again, this has happened to me as well. We feel like we can't go for Cucurella and Tierney. We can't go for those mid-priced £5 million defenders. Because if we're going to go for that, we might as well try and upgrade to Man City and Chelsea. Or we might as well go all the way down to Duffy and Livramento. And I'm not necessarily convinced that's true, right? Again, I think Cucurella could be fantastic value playing at left wing back. Tierney is looking great. If we back Arsenal defence, which we are with Ramsdale White, Tierney for an extra 0.5 on White could be a great option. So the reason I've chose this draft is essentially to say, I think Man City attackers could be a great way to go. Maybe you go for like Torres and Grealish or Torres and Foden, right? And also, don't be afraid of going for some different options in defence. Tierney and Cucurella in particular stick out to me. And I just think that they could be great options when everyone else is clamouring to try and get those premium defenders. The mid-price defenders could do really well. So I've called this the road less travelled. I assume in the comments this will be the least popular. But once again, let me know in the comments if you like this approach of trying to attack the Man City attackers. So I've called the 4th and final draft the Forgotten Men. And as you can see straight away, the Forgotten Men that I'm referring to are Vardy and Kane. Again, it's all been about, are you going to have Ronaldo or are you going to have Lukaku? Or are you potentially going to drop both and just have Antonio, right? Very few people are talking about Vardy and talking about Kane. I'll start with Vardy. I actually recommended, if you watch my videos over on the Fantasy Football Fix channel, I recommended Vardy ahead of game week 6, and I said you should own him for the next 3 game weeks if it fits your structure. He then went on to score, I think he scored like 4 goals, or he's got like over like 25, 30 points in those 3 weeks. So I'll actually praise myself and say that was a great shout. But I did see this coming, and yet I couldn't follow my own advice, right? It just feels wrong in that price bracket. You feel like you can get more value out of the Jimenez, Bamford, DCL, Antonio, etc. Those players in that vein, you feel like you can get more value out of them, and you can spend the extra like 2.5, 3 million on someone else other than Vardy. But the man just continues to keep scoring points. Not only is he on penalties, which is always a really nice attraction to a player, but he just is, he's fantastic, right? His story of how he's grown and come up to the Prem as well, and everything that he's achieved and continues to achieve is incredible. And I don't think he's going to stop scoring goals this season. I think he will continue to tick along nicely. The Man United fixture is slightly off-putting, but you need to think slightly more long-term with your wildcards. So I wouldn't let that put me off. And if you've seen Manchester United, I'm a Manchester United fan, right? The one thing that we're susceptible to, and I mean we are really susceptible to, is getting hit on the break. And Vardy doesn't have the pace that he once had, but as a team, Leicester are fantastic at counter-attacking. And with Barnes, Iheanacho, Daka, whoever Vardy's got around him, I do still think that Leicester will be very, very deadly on the break. I don't expect Manchester United to keep a clean sheet, so I don't mind that at all. I think that Vardy deserves to have more attention on him and to have more people talking about him. The big dilemma for me in my current draft is either Son or Vardy. And just fixture-wise, and because he gets the extra point for the clean sheet and the goal, I just about prefer Son at the moment, right? But I think Vardy is a great option. If you want to go for Son or Vardy, I think they're both great options on wildcard. And Kane is the next one. You can see I've put the captaincy armband on him. Don't stress. I'd probably always have my captain on Salah in game week 8. But it's a really interesting one with Kane, right? Because this is a pure gut feeling punt. He has done nothing to suggest that he should be in our teams. His underlying statistics aren't that fantastic, but it is Harry Kane. And whether you expect him to be at Tottenham come the January transfer window or not, or by the end of the season, that's a whole nother debate to have. And yes, he might not be putting in 110% because he doesn't want to stay at the club. He's too good to just not do anything for the next few months, right? Even if he's putting in 60% of his effort, he will start to score goals. And the fixtures are unbelievable for Tottenham coming up, right? The next 3 or 4 aren't great, but from around game week 12 onwards, Spurs have 3 or 4 games in a row where you could captain Kane or Son in all of them. And taking a punt on Son, backed by the numbers, I think quite a few other people do that. There's no one going to be backing Kane right now. And all it takes is one penalty and one fluky goal with Kane. You're looking at a 10-12 pointer, and then all of a sudden, he starts to find his form again. So again, I'm not suggesting this based on the data. If someone told me they've put Kane and Vardy into their wildcard draft, I would not say that's a bad decision at all. I like it. It's brave. It's looking at your team and going, do I need to have XYZ player instead? Do I need a Foden and a Grealish and a Trent? Or could I potentially downgrade both of those and go for a Vardy and a Kane? Right? I love it. I think, again, it's quite a brave option. And you don't necessarily need to go for both of these. If you downgraded Vardy or Kane to like an Armstrong or a Hwang, you could then upgrade your defence and get Trent in as well. So you could be a little bit less brave than this, but still have one of the forgotten men in Vardy or Kane. What this does mean is that both the defence and the midfield is slightly weaker because you've essentially got 4 premiums there. And Lukaku, Kane and Salah are expensive premiums at that as well. So it means that you've got to have both Smith Rowe and Mbeumo starting most games, which again, I don't really mind, but Smith Rowe isn't 100% nailed. So it might be that you need your defender every now and again. And obviously Rafinha, I would start every game anyway. The defence, as you can see, I've gone for Rudiger in every draft. I actually don't have Rudiger in my latest draft. I have Chilwell. But I don't want to suggest Chilwell because I think it's a very risky pick and I don't want it to bite me in the arse and you come back to me and say, why did you recommend me putting Chilwell in my team, right? So I've put Rudiger in this because he's the safest player. He's going to play almost every game. So you can see Rudiger and White, you can play them in every single game. They've got great fixtures coming up, Chelsea and Arsenal. And then you can rotate Duffy, Livramento and Pinnock. So you've got 3 great... Pinnock I really like. I like the idea of having a Brentford defender or Rico Henry potentially. So your team is actually really set up with a strong bench and strong players in each position. It just means that you can't go for a premium defence and you have to go a little bit cheaper in midfield. The other thing that I don't necessarily like about this is that there's no Manchester City. And as you can see in 2 of my drafts, potentially even the 3rd one, I can't remember, I like the idea of triple City, right? So for me, I don't like the fact that there's no Manchester City. So to get around that, I would downgrade one of Vardy, Kane or Lukaku. one of those 3 premium strikers, I would downgrade one of them and then use the funds elsewhere. But this is just to show you that if someone racked up with this draft and they showed me it on Twitter, I'd say I love that. I like the fact that you're going for 3 premium strikers. All 3 of them are probably on pens. We know Vardy and Kane are. Lukaku probably is as well. They're all very talismanic and they're all going to play 90 minutes in their teams. You could do a lot worse than going for Lukaku, Vardy and Kane. That's the 4th and final draft. Let me know what you think about the Forgotten Men draft. Do you like the idea of Vardy and Kane, or do you think it's trying to overthink things potentially? So guys, there you have it. Those are my 4 differential or different drafts. Again, I promise I'm not just trying to be different for different sake. I'm trying to encourage you guys to have a play around with team structures. Don't just settle into what the masses are doing because you've been told that's the thing to do. And you've seen all these YouTubers pick these players, and therefore they must be the best players. Make your own decisions. I guarantee you will have more fun with FPL and potentially shoot up the rankings whilst the template and the other managers that are all doing the same things start to struggle. At least you will have more fun at the very least. If you do want to support the channel and basically get the best free football app on the market, do remember to download OneFootball. It really helps me out, and obviously it lets them know that this might be a partnership that they want to continue in the future. So I would really appreciate that if you could click the link below and download the app. Other than that, you can like, comment, and subscribe. As always, those things are free as well for the channel. And if you do want to donate a little bit of money and also get some perks as well, you can become a member of the channel by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button, or by clicking the link in the description which says if you want to become a member, click this link right here. You get some nice perks alongside being included in our group chat where we talk about football, FPL, etc. all day, every day, and also in our membership Wrap Tier 1 mini league as well, which is really cool. So if you want to do any of those things to support the channel, most of them are free apart from becoming a member. I would really appreciate that. But I will see you in the next video, which will be my team selection video. After that, we'll do a game week preview, and then we might do a stream as well. So still so much more content to come. Please do subscribe to see all of that content, and I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.